My name is John H., and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a drug addict and a compulsive gambler. In this Code Blue Big Book Study in Action seminar, we're going to go through the recovery section of the Big Book line by line, and we're going to do the action that our book tells us we must do to recover from the seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. This is based on the Canadian method used by the Golden Slippers, but I also borrow a lot of information from the Joe and Charlie Big Book Weekend tapes, as I feel their interpretation carries so much depth and weight. Sometimes I use their material verbatim, so don't get angry at me. Sometimes they can say things a lot better than me. This action and study is designed so that you can follow along in a 4th edition Big Book. Have your pen and highlighter ready. I don't claim to be any kind of big book guru or top 10 spiritualist. I'm just a simple drunk who was almost dead from the disease when a group of my heroes, some recovered alcoholics, took me through the book 5 years ago and saved my life. There's also some paperwork that you can download. Hopefully I'll get that online as well. Some from Joe and Charlie and some from the Golden Slippers. Please forgive any mistakes, errors, or misquotes you may detect. I'm sure there are many, for once again, I'm just a simple drunk trying to help other folks as I was helped myself. Thanks for listening. I'm John, I'm an alcoholic. During the 1950s, a man by the name of Max C., now dead, started a group in Winnipeg, Manitoba called the Golden Slippers. The group was a back to the basics of the big book kind of group, especially for those people who could not stay sober for any length of time. The group took a bunch of chronic slippers and walked them through the steps, taking the action exactly as laid out by the first 100 men and women who wrote the basic textbook Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not your typical thanks for sharing kind of AA meeting, nor is it like any seminar. Participants are asked to do all 12 steps as laid out in our basic textbook. One or more of the people who've done this work before will be guides to lead you through the instructions in our basic textbook using a dictionary published at about the same time as the book Alcoholics Anonymous to help us better understand the directions as they were written by the first 100 men and women. We ask every participant to commit to the entire process. Though we read and study the AA Big Book, this group is not limited to members of AA. We who have participated in these groups before have come to understand that these sessions make us much better sponsors. We can now lead people through the steps exactly as given to us by those who have gone before, unfettered and unchanged. In addition to being a boot camp for sponsors, we also feel this is especially valuable to those who have been through some sort of treatment or rehab and have been, in effect, left off at step 3 or step 5. Recovery requires that we do all 12 steps. We recover in AA by taking the steps, and if we don't take the action as described in our basic textbook, we might not recover. The study and action sessions will guide you through the steps precisely as the first 100 men and women laid them down. These are back to the basic sessions, accepting the simple kit of spiritual tools that's been laid at our feet. Let's open with the set-aside prayer. God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about sobriety, life, and you, so that I may be open to a new experience. Amen. All right, welcome. I appreciate everybody coming. I know it's hard when the weather gets nice out like it is. So thank you for coming. Last week, we talked about the solution to the problem, right? Now, I passed out this little piece of paper last week, and I didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it, so just briefly, I'm going to talk about it. There are two great powers in these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of them is the fellowship. The fellowship is when people come together and share and overcome a common problem. And that's a very, very strong power. And I kind of shortchanged it last week. I do not want to shortchange the power of the fellowship. What I did say, though, is if you are a real alcoholic, just going to meetings alone is going to be insufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. So what we do, our little sheet here shows that all of the older members, right, we're going to help support that new member, and we're going to get that new member to believe that there's a power greater than himself or herself, and make them willing to try something different, and then perhaps to go ahead and to work these steps. Once they work these steps, they have the life-changing experience or the spiritual awakening, and then they become an older member, and then they start to share their experience, strength, and hope with the newer members, right? And this is a two-way street. When older members share with the new member, the older members get just as much as the newer member. Now, when I'm talking about older members, I'm not talking about a crusty old fella that's been coming to the meetings for 40 years and never worked a step in his life. I'm talking about the people that have come here, have worked the steps, have had a spiritual awakening, and they're no longer the same person. They've had a personality transformation sufficient to overcome their alcoholism. Now, when I went through my first Code Blue session about 4.5 years ago, I think it was about week 7 or week 8, they said, anybody here who doesn't have a sponsor, raise your hand. And I was honest, I raised my hand, and as soon as the meeting was over, I ran out of that meeting really quick. One of the fellows ran out of the building, chased me down, and brought me back in, and he assigned me a sponsor. You know, I was at the point where I was afraid, or I was too prideful. I couldn't ask anybody to help me, so he assigned me one. Now, the fellow that he assigned to me was 26 years younger than me, and he had about the same amount of sobriety as I did, maybe even a week less. See, the difference was I was going to meetings to stay sober, and I was hanging on by my fingernails. This guy jumped into the program right away, did the steps, and he had the awakening. So even though our sobriety time was equal and he was 26 years younger, he was an older member that had the experience, and he was able to share that with me so that I too could have the experience. So that's a little bit what we talked about last week was the solution. Today we're going to talk the chapter 3 more about alcoholism. So I think what Bill is going to do in this chapter is he's going to show us exactly what's going to happen to us if we do not accept a spiritual solution to this problem, right? So he's going to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that's the insanity that occurs in our minds when we are stone cold sober prior to us taking the first drink. So I believe, guys, we are on page 30. Page 30. And that's just my whole the first 2 pages are all highlighted, but we'll go a little bit easy on you guys. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Okay, we're going to highlight this next sentence. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. Highlight, the persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Right? We learned, and we're going to highlight this next sentence because this is step 1. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. Okay? The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to circle 4 words. Okay, so where we are in smashed, we're going to go up 2 lines and we're going to circle delusion. Okay, we're going to go up 3 lines and circle insanity. The next line up, we're going to circle the word illusion. And then the next line up, we're going to circle the word obsession. Okay, so Bill is using 4 different words to get across the exact same idea. I'm gonna read a quick definition of each of those 4 words. Obsession, disturbing preoccupation with an idea or feeling. Insanity, foolish, not mentally sound. Illusion, mistaken idea. Delusion, persistent idea in something false. So he's using all 4 of those words to tell us exactly the same thing, and that is that we will believe a lie, right? We're going to believe a lie. Now, off to the left, we're going to write something. Okay, that word smashed, kind of underline the word smashed. maybe draw a little arrow over to the left margin, because we're going to write some instructions for your sponsee. Okay, this is very important, because what we're doing is not only are we going to go through the steps and work them ourselves, but that we're also going to train ourselves so that when we go out with this book, we're going to be able to help the still suffering and sick and dying alcoholic. So step 1 instructions, you can write step 1 instructions. And again, I've had a lot of coffee, so tell me to slow down. I want to make sure everybody writes this down. It's very important. Step 1 instructions. Ask sponsee if they think they have another drink in them. Ask sponsee if they think they have another drink in them. Okay, and then we're going to put something in parentheses, drink successfully, question mark, in parentheses after that. Step 1 instructions, ask sponsee if they think they have another drink in them. In parentheses, drink successfully, question mark. And if anybody needs me to say that again, let me know. We're going to write something else as well.
What do you mean by drink successfully? Are you going to tell us?
Well, it's going to become clear as we read this, but it's a beautiful day out today, right? It's a beautiful day. I had a really good day at work. I made a lot of money, made some good sales. I'm thinking, you know what, man? How nice would it be? But my boss was kind of angry. I bet if I just had a couple of drinks tonight out on my deck and grilled a steak, my God, wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, you know what? I've got the allergy. I can't just go out there and drink 1 or 2 drinks. If I put alcohol into my body, I'm going to keep going until I'm completely drunk. So I know from after I've worked these steps and been restored to sanity, I know that I cannot drink successfully. And what we're going to do in this chapter is we're going to look at 4 people. He's going to show us the insanity that precedes the first drink. And that in the past, when I'd been sober, I'm doing it on willpower, or I'm doing it on meetings only. I had a day like I did today. Guess what? I don't have to go into work tomorrow. You bet an idea could cross my head that how nice it would be just to have 4 beers. 6 at the most, right? But you know what? I cannot drink successfully because when I drink, the allergy kicks in and I keep drinking till I'm on the floor. So that's what I mean. Ask sponsee if they think they have another drink in them. In parentheses, drink successfully. Drink like other people. We see other people that are able to have a couple glasses of wine, right, with dinner, and then go about their business and get stuff done. They can drink successfully. We cannot, right? So that's what I mean. Now, we're going to write something else. If yes, right? If the answer is yes, if your sponsee says, well, I've been sober for a month now, 30 days, and you know what? I think maybe I can handle it a little better now. If yes, go back to doctor's opinion. So if the sponsee or you yourself think maybe you can drink successfully, drink without getting drunk, we're going to go back and reread the doctor's opinion. We're going to go through the book up to this point once again. Right? Because we've got to get it. It says it right here. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. Right? I made that same decision that I could drink successfully hundreds of times, and it all turned out the same. With me maybe getting in an accident, with me maybe getting fired, with me having a fight with my girlfriend. Any jail, whatever. I simply cannot drink like other people. And we have to fully concede that to our innermost selves, because that is the first step. I mean, if we don't think that, we're going to have a hard time doing steps 2, 3, 4, and forward. So that is the first step, and we've got to smash the idea that we can drink like other people. Okay, we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. Highlight that sentence. We've lost the ability to control our drinking. We know, and we're going to highlight the next one, we know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control, and double underline ever. We never gain control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time, underline, to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. You know what? I had that little thought that passed in my head, and I acted on that little thought, and I started to drink, and when I woke up the next morning, I had pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization because I did it again, right? The same thing happened to me. My girlfriend walked out, I missed work, I'm in trouble with the boss, etc., etc. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Okay, underline progressive illness, and then highlight that last sentence. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. Okay, and after worse, never better, let's write progressive disease. Progressive disease. And that, you know what, even if we stop drinking for a long time, I used to think a long time was a couple of months, but even if we've stopped for 5 or 10 years, once we start drinking again, we pick off as if we had never stopped drinking, and our disease has progressed to that point. By the way, at the bottom of the page, let's write honesty is principle behind step 1. Honesty is principle behind step 1. Honesty is the principle behind step 1. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there has been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree, highlight, there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Okay, that's very important because, again, we've got the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. We cannot drink like normal people. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. I think they have. I took Antabuse. That was simply a pill that when I took it, and if I drank on it, I got deathly ill, but even that didn't stop me. So, despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, underline real alcoholics. Remember, we talked about the hard drinker, we talked about the temperate drinker. Many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves, circle, exceptions to the rule. And right next to that, when I say circle, underline, highlight, all the same thing. Next to that, write denial. Right? I think I was in my 5th or 6th treatment, before I finally came to the conclusion that maybe I do have to ease up on this drinking a little bit, right? That's denial. Therefore, non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing inability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Highlight this one again. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Right? I mean, most of the people in my family, at the get-togethers, they're able to have 2 or 3 glasses of wine and then stop. And when they stop, they leave that glass half full. Right? That is not the way that we drink. It simply doesn't work for us. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a drink trip, swearing off forever, with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We could increase the list ad infinitum. So we're going to put a bracket all along that whole paragraph, and next to it we're going to write how it doesn't work. Right? A little further on we've got how it works. This is how it doesn't work. Okay? How it doesn't work. And after that, we're going to write something else. Ask sponsee to fully concede he or she is alcoholic. Right here, we're going to ask him again, can you fully concede, once again, to your innermost self that you are a real alcoholic? So just write, ask sponsee to fully concede they're alcoholic. We're going to ask them again. Because, if they don't take step 1, they can't take step 2. Right? I could never go on to step 2 until I finally had step 1 drilled into my head. I thought I had step 1, but I didn't for many, many years. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Next to that, we're going to write something else. Let them make the decision if they are alcoholic. We can't tell. I like to tell both of my brothers, you guys are alcoholics. Can't you see what I'm doing? I think you guys should go to meetings and do this. I'd love to tell them that, but it doesn't work. Let them make the decision if they are alcoholic. They've got to do it. You know, doesn't matter what we think or what we think we know. Let them make the decision if they are alcoholic. So, put a little line after diagnose yourself. Right next to where it says step right there, we're going to write somewhere in there. I wrote it on the bottom, first test. That we're going to do 2 tests, right? To see maybe if you don't think you're an alcoholic, they're going to give us 2 tests. So this is test number 1 or first test. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Right? Now, I don't recommend any of you guys doing this, but I mean, if you got somebody that they don't think they're an alcoholic, this might give them a better idea. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide if you are honest. Circle honest. That's the principle with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of jitters if you get a full knowledge of your condition. Okay. Though there is no way of proving it, we're going to highlight the next 2 sentences. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. Right? I do have some sponsees that are younger, and if they're willing, right, to go through these steps, they're going to be able to have the same experience that I did. We have heard of a few instances where people who show definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of an overpowering desire to do so. Here is one. So draw a little line under desire to do so, and right underneath that write first case. Bill is going to give us 4 cases of people. We're going to look into their minds, and we're going to look a little bit about the insanity before they take that first drink. So this is the first case. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts and quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Underline this little sentence. Once he started, he had no control whatever. Next to that we underlined, write physical allergy. Physical allergy. So this guy definitely, once he started drinking, he could not control it. He wanted to have just a couple of drinks. It did not work for him. He had more. Physical allergy. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. Okay, so we're going to highlight to men. Then he fell victim to a belief, which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. Okay, highlight that. Go back up and circle the word belief. And next to what we just highlighted, let's write the big lie. And we're going to put that in quotation marks. The big lie. And you know what? It's different for everybody else. For me, when I was younger in my 20s, if I was able to patch together 2 or 3 months of sobriety, I said, my goodness, you see this, I'm making too hard work of this thing. I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And I would start drinking again. I mean, if I was able to get 4 months, I would convince myself that because I was able to stay sober, even if it took going to a meeting every single night, that I really was not a real alcoholic, right? That's called the big lie. Out came his carpet slippers in a bottle. In 2 months, he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime. Highlight, Then, gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. Next to that, we're going to write crossed invisible line. Crossed invisible line. And guys, I apologize. I forgot. Did anybody, we're going to stop here just for a minute. I forgot to ask if anybody did their homework. You got it? All right. Well, that's all right. That's okay. So what we were supposed to do, right? And I'm sorry, guys. We were supposed to do this before we got started. So put this on hold just for a second. Do you mind reading 5 things that you're grateful for?
Oh, right.
Sure. All right. So he's gonna read 5 things that he's grateful for in the last week. Go ahead.
Now I got to find where I wrote them down. Okay. Grateful for a wife that hasn't left me, though she has reason to. Grateful for loving children who care for my well-being. Grateful for the physical ability to ride a bike, that I didn't always have that ability. I'm grateful for the people at AA who care and support my sobriety. And I'm grateful for a sponsor who said yes when I came out of the woods after years of drinking.
Fantastic. May I see your God is and God isn't too? Okay. So this is the real, and we're just going to do a quick one here. So, and this is important, guys. If you haven't done it, and I know Peter, you weren't here last week, but what I want you to do, if you haven't done it, is on one side write God is, and on the other side write God is, and then just put down some ideas of what you think they are. So, do you mind if I read this?
Go ahead.
Okay. So he's got under God is, he's got more powerful than me. That's pretty good. He's got my Savior from alcohol. I like that. He's got love. Fantastic. Ever present. Great. A good listener and a friend. That is fantastic. On the other side, God isn't. He's got a genie in a bottle, a tool to use, a hidden entity, a judge, hate, anger, etc. You know what? That's fantastic. So now, if this sheet wasn't on a legal pad, what I would do is I would rip it in half. I would throw away the part that said God isn't. I would give him the part that said God is. And I would say, let's pretend that this is what God is. And let's start asking this God for some help. Right? And even if you don't believe, we're going to cover that next week. If you're an atheist or an agnostic, we're going to handle that one next week. But let's road test this God and ask him for some help in the morning, right? And if we get through the day sober, let's thank him at night. So that's the whole point of this exercise. And we're going to is there anybody else that wants to read 5 things or?
Yeah, I've got some.
Go ahead. Let's hear.
Well, God is good, loving Father, listens, caring, forgiving. God isn't hateful, punishing, unforgiving, judgmental, scorning.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you know what? All we've got to do, because, people have, and I don't care if you've had bad experiences with religion, whatever. Write down some things that you would like God to be. Just write them down, and then give it a road test, and just ask that particular God for help. Do you got some things that you're grateful for? Yeah.
Yeah, health. As far as I know, I'm in good health. My family, my friends, my sobriety. I'm not hungry or cold or wet. I've got a house and a bed to go home to.
Fantastic.
And I'm not at war. I'm not out there in the battlefield trying to kill somebody.
Fantastic.
Kill me.
Yeah. Yes.
I thought it was that you're grateful for things last week.
Well, yeah, last week or anything. I mean, it's just.
Well, for general, okay.
Yep. And the other thing too, guys, the other thing that I wanted everybody to do, and if you haven't done it, that's okay, but please try to get it done. Ask some people how they found their higher power. And you ask a couple people in AA, but also ask a few people out of AA, right? Ask them how they found their higher power. And it's interesting, some of the answers that we're going to get from these people. So these are exercises. What's that?
I got 3.
Well, go ahead.
One, working on it.
Okay.
Don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship.
Yep.
And the other one is through sponsor's example, and because she could see that she would like to have what her sponsor has and work in the steps and program.
Fantastic, yep. So that, that was through working the steps, the program, and seeing what the sponsor has, and you would like that too. And you know what? God can be good orderly direction, man. When I'm out there drinking every night, I don't have any good, I'm not showing up for work on time, I'm not making my bed, I'm not being kind to people. I mean, I'm a mess, right? So good orderly direction is a good start. So, and while I remember it, I keep forgetting to tell you guys, we will not be meeting the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So write that down, the Tuesday after Memorial Day, I'll be up in the Boundary Waters. I've been trying to remember to tell you guys. So we are going to meet next week, but it's the Tuesday after Memorial Day. We will not be meeting, so if you want to stay out of town an extra day, that is fantastic. So sorry that I forgot to tell you that. But everybody, if you do the God is, the God isn't thing, find out, ask people, and these grateful things, it's good to think about a few things you're grateful for every single day. I try to do that. So, all right, so we're going back to the man of 30. He was able to stop for 25 years, and then he said, hey man, I stopped for 25 years. I think that I can drink like other men, right? So now all of a sudden, then gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. He crossed the invisible line. Every means of solving his problem which money could buy was at his disposal. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. Right? This case contains a powerful lesson. Okay, we're going to highlight the next sentence. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. Right? Again, that's that lie that we tell ourselves, right? But here is a man who at 55 years found he was just where he had left off at 30. Okay? So this is a real big one here. So highlight, we have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And I want you to double underline, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Right? Because our brain is going to tell us, we get some sobriety under our belt, our brain's going to tell us that maybe this whole thing is a little bit of a mistake. Right? And then what happens? This guy was dead within 4 years. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must, circle must, be no reservation of any kind nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. Okay, so put a little asterisk next to that last sentence, and then just write, ask your sponsee this. And all it is there any lurking notion, right? So again, we're going to ask our sponsee 3 times right here, because we have got to hammer step 1 into our heads, right? So all of you too, but into the heads of the people we're trying to help. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it, because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, and our crowd, they're talking about alcoholics, men of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking 20 years. Okay? We're going to highlight the next 3 lines. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take the quantity some of us have. This is particularly true of women, right? Highlight that right there. And I'll never forget, man, I think I was at about 6 months sober, and I saw this woman talk, and her drinking career spanned only 1 year, and she didn't drink nearly the quantities that I drank, right? And so I'm sitting in the back of the crowd saying, this is ridiculous. I don't have anything in common with this woman. She's not even a real, right? So this is what's going on in my head. But about 4 months later, when I went through this with my sponsor, I thought of that woman, and then I remembered all of the horrible things and the emotional and the despair and the desperation and the hopelessness that she described, and I said, my God, she is exactly like me. It doesn't matter that she only drank for a year, and it doesn't matter that she didn't drink what I drank. She had all of the same symptoms I did, and she reached her bottom just like I did. So particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. Okay, so, the step 2, right? It says a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity. That indicates that we're insane, and a lot of people in these rooms get offended. But I'm not insane, right? I might do some crazy things when I'm drunk, but I remember them. I'm not insane, right? And that's not what they mean. That's not what we mean, right? They say that. I haven't lost my house, I haven't lost my wife, I haven't lost my job, I've got all of these things. I am not sane, right? And that's not what they're talking about. When you go to the dictionary and you look up sanity, sanity means wholeness of mind or completeness of mind, right? We can see the truth and we make decisions based on the truth, and things usually come out okay. Right? An insane mind is less than whole. An insane mind cannot always see the truth. We make a decision based on a lie or something that's not true, and things can get pretty lousy, right? When I tell myself that this time's going to be different, I'm just going to have a couple of drinks, right? Insane doesn't mean crazy. Crazy means we've lost more than half our marbles and we got to be locked up. Insanity simply means that we're less than whole. So if I got a pan of lasagna and there's 10 pieces, right, I give away one piece, I got 90% left. I give away a second piece, I got 80% left, right? Insanity doesn't mean you're all gone. It just means you're not quite all here. And when it comes to alcohol, sometimes we are not all here. We make a decision to drink based on a lie, right? And then the next morning or that night we run into the truth, and our life becomes pretty lousy, right? So, and that's what he's saying with obsession, illusion, insanity, and delusion. They all mean to believe a lie, and that's something we've got to watch out for. Can anybody tell me where I left off here? What's that?
Potential female.
Oh. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their ability to stop. We who are familiar with the symptoms see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. True when this book was first published, but a 2007 U.S.-Canada membership survey showed about 1/13 of AAs were 30 and under. As we look back, we feel we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. Okay, so we're going to, right where it says, if anyone, we're going to write second test. This is the second test. You can just write it right next to the next 4 lines. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, then highlight, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. That's the second test. Let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. Second test. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of success. I got those people at work, and it's like, I'm not an alcoholic, right? I even if I'm hungover, I still make it to work on time. I'm not an alcoholic, so I say, well, why don't you try a test? Why don't you try leaving alcohol alone for 1 year? And the response is always, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? I'm like, okay, how about try leaving it alone for a month? Well, that's ridiculous. Why should I do that? I'm like, well, can you do it for a week? Oh, that's ridiculous, right? So if somebody, try leaving it alone for 1 year, and if you can do that, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, highlight, there is scant chance of success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remain sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. That's not true in my case, but I've heard of some people that have done that. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. Okay, underline this next phrase. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Okay, so again, off to the left, we're going to write, do you want to stop for good, question mark. This is another question you can ask yourself. And when you're out there sponsoring, we're going to ask our sponsee again right here. Do you want to stop for good? Right? I mean, a lot of us, and I know I when the heat was on me really bad, I'd go to that 30-day treatment, and I'd stay sober, just until the heat was off me, because I really didn't want to stop for good, right? So, do you want to stop for good? Question mark. That's what we're going to